Hello, everyone. My name is William Julian, and with me today I have Chris Molka. We are going to
Hello.
yes, and today we are going to be talking about Magic the Gathering. More specifically,
Yes.
our favorite cards.
Yes. And then probably some sort of discussion on what that means for us when it's our favorite card. What sort of
Exactly.
things that reflects on us as players of games.
Indeed. All right,
Well, there's an
so
idea for the title, Players of Games.
ha 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 ha. The only true
Okay,
players use female cards. That was a joke. Don't worry.
I know the awkward silence will hopefully suitably satisfy the listeners. That was awful.
All right, so I will start things off. Talk about my favorite card that I like to use often. That's what I'll start with. And the one I like to start out with is Lightning Bolt. It is actually one of my favorite cards to use. Lightning Bolt is a red card. To cast it, you have to pay 1 red mana. It has the ability of Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and it is an instant card, which means it can be used at any time in the game.
Yes, and I believe with the current Magic Oracle text technology, it's 3 damage to any target since they changed the targeting rules.
Right. And by the way,
Yeah.
just for some fun information, the Lightning Bolt has actually been a card since Alpha. It's been seen in many different sets: Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Revised, 4th Edition,
And a
Beatdown
bunch of
Box
others
Set,
there.
Masters Edition, M10, M11, Fire and Lightning Premium Deck, Modern Masters 2015, Arch Enemy Nicol Bolas, and Masters 25.
So reprinted a lot, though I still think one of my favorite things about it is when it was finally reprinted at M10, the flavor text, just as it says, the Spark Mage shrieked, calling on the rage of the storms of his youth. To his surprise, the sky responded with a fierce energy he'd never thought to see again, is entirely a reference to it was printed in the original sets, then for a long time was considered too good to be printed again, until finally they say, well, let's surprise everyone and bring it back. Originally part of a cycle, which has a bunch of very good cards to the point of overpowered, and a bunch of cards you really don't want to play. It runs the gamut from Healing Salve, which is gain 3 life or prevent 3 damage for 1 white, to Ancestral Recall, which makes a player draw 3 cards. I believe one of the original printings of that was, it's like, you draw 3 cards or force someone else to draw 3 cards. Oh, force, yes. Yes, it's such a bad thing for me to draw 3 cards.
Depending on the deck, it can be very devastating.
I mean, yeah, there's going to be times where it's a good thing, but most of the time you're just going to say, I'll draw 3 cards, whereas Lightning Bolt, you're just going to be like, you or something you control is going to take 3 damage.
And that's actually one of the things I really like about it. I find it's very useful in almost any type of situation. The only time it's going to be useless is if your opponent can prevent damage completely.
Certain times, it's interesting, because in Magic's format of Modern, the I think it's now red-white, but the burn deck is essentially a few good creatures in red, and then every single variation on Lightning Bolt they can play.
I can agree with that. I remember back when I was in high school creating a red deck that I made sure the mana of the mana cost of all the cards in the deck did not go above 3. Except for a few miracle cards, because Innistrad, or the Avacyn card set had come out. I had a few miracle cards that you pay 1 and it deals 5 damage to any target. But
yeah,
Lightning Bolt
Miracle is an interesting mechanic.
Yep.
But
the
yeah.
only time it was kind of restricted was if you started with it in your hand.
Yeah. And then But yeah, Lightning Bolt is definitely a good tried and true card. Always worked out well. But since you brought up something of a good transition, you mentioned Avacyn Restored, which is actually where one of my favorite cards comes from in
Indeed.
Restoration Angel. For 3 and a white, you get a creature, it's just type Angel, has Flash, which says you can cast it at instant speed, like your Lightning Bolt, flying, and then when Restoration Angel enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-angel creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control, and it has power 3 and toughness 4. I remember when I first started playing Magic, around Avacyn Restored, this card was one of my favorites, because at the time, while I've more developed into the colors I most play, and I believe you, having played me and other people, would just call me a blue mage, I really started liking white at first. The first deck I ever played was a friend's mono white humans deck.
Okay.
And the thing is that even though I started playing white, when I like playing tricksy sort of things when it comes to card games, like holding things in reserve and like getting surprising things. And this has a multitude of uses with that. You know, sometimes it just comes down surprising with Flash to just be a creature that can then attack, and says it has flying, it has evasion, and can be hard for some people to block. Sometimes it saves my creature from a removal spell. Sometimes it's a part of a combo. There are quite a few cards in some way that can combo with Restoration Angel to create infinite creatures, or just hit good effects. You know, I have a creature that when it enters the battlefield, it draws me a card. So I use Restoration Angel to blink that thing to draw me another card.
Right.
Blinking kind of being a pseudo, just colloquial name for you may exile a creature and then return it to the battlefield immediately.
Right.
But yeah, and I have to say, for completely non-mechanically, the art on the card by Johannes Voss is one of my favorites in the game.
That would be the Avacyn Restored art?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I was looking at the Iconic Masters one.
Yeah, that one was originally, I think, a promo version. I can't remember which promo it was. But yeah, like, it's still good art. I just very much prefer the original art on the card.
Right. And by the way, just to mention it, this card was released in the Avacyn Restored set in Modern Masters 2017, and of course, Iconic Masters.
Well, that was always interesting in Iconic Masters, where you could basically go through the cards and try to do a little thing of, is this card iconic or not? And it just felt a little wrong with Restoration Angel because it wasn't that old at the time. And when you think iconic, you think of something older than that. But I mean, it's still a good card.
Mm-hmm.
It was a staple in the standard formats it was in, which was a very big pain to me as an early Magic player when I didn't have a ton of money and wanted more copies of this card than I think the one I got in some like pre-constructed deck, but I couldn't afford them at like $20 a piece. But I can now say, as a further adult, I have a full playset of this card and enjoy it.
Yep, it's pretty nice.
Much like your card, Lightning Bolt. I remember playing an F&M guy just getting rid of cards, just like he had a box of things, just like, oh, anything in it, just give me $1 and you can have it. And I found, I think, a full playset of the foil Fire and Ice Lightning Bolts.
Wow.
They're somewhere around in my giant piles of cards. Magic players will know what I'm talking about when it comes to unless you have it organized very well. They just kind of stack up places.
Honestly, my collection is actually pretty well organized. I have them organized by rarity, but I also have them organized by set. And then, of course...
And then you left most of it back here when you moved.
Yeah, I'll be back for it.
Eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And
I also believe I asked you to look into your favorite legendary.
yes. So, I technically have two. One that I've never played, and one that I play quite often. I'll go with the one I play quite often. So, probably my favorite legendary creature is Nekusar the Mindraiser. Nekusar the Mindraiser is a 5-cost 2/4. The cost being 2 any land, blue, black, and red. It's a 2/4 legendary creature zombie wizard. It has the ability at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Nekusar the Mindraiser deals 1 damage to that player. Only ever seen in Commander 2013.
Well, very famously in that Commander set, the deck Nekusar was in was very much a hot ticket item when that stuff first released. Do you know why, Will?
I don't think I do. Please enlighten me.
If I remember correctly, it had Nekusar wasn't the face commander.
No,
but
it's not.
In Commander 2013, his deck was the one that had a card called True Name Nemesis.
Yes. Yes, it does.
And that card was very sought after.
Broken.
Because
Well,
yes,
almost broken.
in Commander it's fair, but in the other formats that, because it was printed in Commander, i.e. Legacy and Vintage, that was a very powerful card for those formats. It also had I believe it was sorcery. Yeah, sorcery, looking at it now.
Since we're talking about it, we should actually probably explain what the True Name Nemesis is.
Yes. True Name Nemesis.
The True Name Nemesis.
Blue. So, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, the True Name Nemesis is a Merfolk rogue creature. It's 3 costs for a 3/1, the cost being 1 any land and 2 blue. As the True Name Nemesis enters the battlefield, choose a player. True Name Nemesis has protection from the chosen player. Protection being it can't take any damage from anything that player does to it.
Yeah, I believe protection
Or enchanted,
has...
or controlled by that player. Can't
yeah,
be blocked,
protection...
yeah.
I believe the acronym to remember protection is DET. Like damage, enchanted, blocked, targeted.
Got it.
Yeah. But back to Nekusar. Yeah, he was a great card. Still is. Just, it's an interesting type of strategy where it's, I'm going to further your guys' game plan and try to give you more resources, but there's going to be a cost. And then that kind of furthers into you start playing effects that are like, well, hey, everybody, let's get rid of our hands and draw new ones. Oh, you're taking damage.
Oh, yes. I know this very well because I have made this kind of deck. I have it with me right now. And we were talking earlier about that card that can make anyone draw 3 cards. I would put that into this deck because I would want people to draw cards because it deals damage to them. And then, of course, playing a lot of
that
cards.
specific card we talked about would be a little difficult to put in that deck. Between expense and I believe legality, it might be banned in Commander.
Probably.
But that's a lot of those most powerful alpha cards.
Right. Which, by the way,
yeah.
you know what Nekusar's biggest downfall is, right? If you don't have any cards that maximize or that unlimit your hand size.
Oh, yeah.
There are very few of those cards, and seeing as Commander only lets you have one of any card in your deck, it can be very rare or difficult to get the one of those cards before your hand goes crazy.
Yeah, and from what I know, there's cards that pair well with him, but they are in white and green.
Right.
So they, in an actual Nekusar deck, they can't be played. But I know there's some people online who have talked about they will actually build a deck that is based around Nekusar, but have a different creature as the commander and just ways to get Nekusar out of their deck for when they finally want to go off. It's a bit of a surprise, whereas you see Nekusar in the command zone, you know what you're in for.
Yeah. I can kind of understand that. I don't completely agree with it, just because I do feel like if you put all your eggs in one basket for card games, the moment you lose one of those cards that you need to fulfill your plan, your game is over.
It can be difficult, though. Ironically, you have unintentionally also created another good segue for me into the card I wanted to talk about.
And which one would that be?
Just reiterating, there was no preparation for this besides both of us looking up these cards on our own. So all his good segues are completely unintentional, but great. But the card, I don't know if you've seen me play this card, but from Commander 2016, Brea, Ethereum Shaper. It's for a white, blue, black, red, 4 mana, 4/4, legendary artifact creature human. No other type, just human. Then when Brea, Ethereum Shaper enters the battlefield, I was trying to combine Shaper and enters. That's an interesting one.
Indeed.
Create 2 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Then she has the ability to pay 2 generic mana and sacrifice 2 artifacts to choose one of 3 effects. She either deals 3 damage to target player, target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn, or you gain 5 life. Now, the reason eggs was a good synergy into this is that's actually the deck I've been thinking of putting together with her. Because I have a Brea deck. I was very lucky when Commander 2016 first released to have a good bit of money. Ended up buying her deck, which was one as soon as I saw that it was going to be artifacts in those colors, and those 4 colors for an artifact deck had been something I had wanted for a while. Because I had an Esper artifact deck. Esper, for those who don't know, being white, blue, and black. But then in recent sets, at the time, they had started printing interesting blue-red artifact synergies, and they couldn't combine in a commander deck until Commander 2016. There had only been one other 4-color card like that printed, but it wasn't a legendary creature, though many people, including some people in research and development at Magic stuff with Wizards of the Coast, have said they probably should have made them legendary. Your Tiller Nephilim. So same casting cost of white, blue, black, red for a 2/2. And then whenever it attacks, return target creature card from your graveyard to play, tapped and attacking. So whenever it attacks, it pulls another creature out of your graveyard to attack with it. Which, while an interesting effect, it's alright, I'd say. It having to attack as a 2/2 for 4 mana, it's interesting and it can be very powerful, but it is very vulnerable. I mean, all it takes is 1 red mana for a person to go, oh, interesting effect. Before you attack, I'll lightning bolt it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's dead. Whereas Brea, besides just cashing in value for artifacts, I've sort of been transitioning into trying to build what's called an eggs deck. Eggs being kind of a nickname for cheap little artifacts that you can then crack or sacrifice to get small effects and generate value and either mana or drawing more cards. And just kind of building up a mass of cheap artifacts on the battlefield and then eventually figuring out what I'm going to do with all of them. And Brea helps with that by giving you something to do with them, because she herself has you sacrifice artifacts to gain value. Interestingly, I'd actually been looking into, because I'd been doing research on like this eggs type strategy for Brea. A couple cards came up that are also good with Nekusar, but for weird reasons. It involves a strategy that I think you might remember that a lot of people hate when it comes to certain things. If you think around the Scars of Mirrodin block, if you remember it, Will, do you think you know what it is?
No, because I entered in an Innistrad.
Infect.
Ah. Oh, so because Nekusar deals damage and...
Yes, because his card specifically says he deals damage to that player, same with Brea. So if you do give them Infect, you only have to deal 10 damage.
Wait a second.
Because it'll give them 10 poison counters.
Okay, so I have a question then. Just on Commander itself. Nekusar, of course, being a commander, if he attacks, would deal commander damage. Does that not apply to his effect then?
What do you mean?
Because when a commander deals damage to a player, they take commander damage rather than just regular damage.
Well, it is still regular damage. Okay. Like if you hit a person for 2, say they're at full life with Nekusar, they do take 2 damage and go down to 38, but they also have another sort of thing to track that ticks up, that if they hit that 21 commander damage from your Nekusar, they will lose the game.
So, but does his ability apply to the commander damage?
No. Commander damage is solely combat damage.
Yeah, I didn't think that was it, but yeah. Okay, yeah, that it makes sense then that still Infect would work, though.
But yeah, because the way Infect works is it just changes the damage they deal to deal damage in either -1/-1 counters on creatures or poison counters on players. And since it's still coming from his ability, but like there are things that'll be like, you know, you have a thing and then it will say it deals damage to something, which is how Nekusar and Brea work. That giving them Infect works with that, so it can kill people quickly. But as certain people have found out, when it comes to Infect in most things, it can get people salty. Like, I think it's fine, but that's me.
Hey, if you can do it in the game, then it's perfectly fair in my opinion. Yes, you can be upset about it, but it's still part of the game. You can't be completely upset at that.
Yeah, like, there are things with Infect and Poison that can be problematic, but it's difficult, but you see it coming. Like, it's something in the game. It doesn't specifically need a hard counter. Like, if they were able to kill you with it, they probably had some other way to kill you. This was just a way of killing you quickly. You get many cards that do such things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but you said you had 2 legendary things you had interest in. Was the second one a creature, or did it relate to...
My last one is a Planeswalker.
Yeah, the whole change of Planeswalkers becoming legendary, which made certain things very much more good, which is a very exciting change when it comes to brewing things. But I already know what it is because I know you. But you go ahead and say what it is for everyone else.
Alright, so probably my most favorite card. I've never played it, I don't have it at all, but it is still my favorite card, is Jace the Mind Sculptor. For those of you who don't know, I am a huge Jace fan, and that is probably the main reason it's my favorite card. The Jace the Mind Sculptor card is a 4-cost card, being 2 colorless and 2 blue mana. It has 4 abilities instead of the regular 3 that a Planeswalker usually has. Its first ability is +2 loyalty counters. Oh, it starts off with 3 loyalty counters. Its first ability is +2 loyalty counters. Look at the top card of target player's library. You may put that card on the bottom of that player's library. It has a 0-cost loyalty ability. Draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. It has a -1 loyalty. return target creature to its owner's hand, and its ultimate loyalty ability is -12, exile all cards from target player's library, then that player shuffles their hand into their library. It came from it was originally from the set World Wake, but it has also been seen in Vault 20, Vintage Masters, Eternal Masters, Masters 25, and War of the Spark Mythic Edition, which was a special edition on the card set that cost about $250, but was in limited quantity.
And from what I remember, had a lot of distribution issues. But that's a different thing.
Right.
But yeah, hoping to immediately get ahead of all the potential hate that we'll get on the internet for you saying you like Jace, as that is somehow an unpopular opinion on certain vocal parts of the internet, but I kind of understand it because there are a lot of other fun planeswalkers that for a long while Wizards of the Coast just seemed to be like, well, we need a blue planeswalker to do, and we want them to do this. Well, let's just make it Jace. I like how in recent times they've been kind of more focusing on this is what Jace does and bringing in other blue planeswalkers to take up some of the other things where it's like, we don't just need to make Jace do everything.
Right.
But I feel like your favorite card in there, Jace the Mind Sculptor, is also a big part of the reason some people dislike him, just because of how powerful he was when he was around.
Yeah, just for the fact that he has that 0 loyalty ability that allows you to draw cards and then put the cards back on top.
Brainstorm. It is just the card Brainstorm once a turn for free. Brainstorm being that same effect of draw 3 cards, then put 2 back on top of your library just as a 1 blue mana instant.
Now, if I remember correctly, Brainstorm usually costs less than Jace. So, in this case, that worth to use that 0 ability would only really come in if you could get him out or use it the second turn he's out. Which, if you look at his card, the moment you play it, he could be lightning bolted.
That was actually very big part of why he wasn't as good when he first came in, because there was a card called, oh come on Chris, you should know that, Bloodbraid Elf, which was a 4-mana 3/2 with haste, I believe. I know it had haste. I don't think it had another keyword with it. I think it was just haste. Yeah, just haste. And then the other thing it had was Cascade, which let you cast another spell.
Right.
When it enters the battlefield with the less CMC. One of which that could be cast at the time was Blightning, which
sounds like an infected lightning bolt.
It does, but what it actually does is it's 1 black red for a sorcery that deals 3 damage to target player, and that player discards 2 cards. This was before the whole rules, so damage to planeswalkers worked weird. It had to target a player, and then you would redirect the damage to the planeswalker. So, besides it having 3 power and haste, which if Jace just came in and brainstormed, which is generally his most powerful thing for him to do when you first play him, a Bloodbraid Elf with haste will kill Jace. The Blightning could kill Jace and take 2 of your cards, which in a blue deck can hurt. But it kind of kept Jace honest for those first little bits. And then as soon as those were gone from the format, that's when Jace really got to shine, especially when paired with other effects.
Right.
Leading to one of the most famous bans in Standard, I believe.
Which is?
But just Jace and then another card, Stoneforge Mystic.
Okay.
Which, it's not overly important. Don't want to get into it too much. But yeah, those 2 cards, when paired together, created a very oppressive deck in the formats they were in, which was right before me and you started playing Magic. Because you started more in Innistrad, and I started like right before the release of Abyssin Restored.
Well, anyway, we're basically out of time. So, thank you, Chris. We've heard a lot about a bunch of different cards, not just the ones that we were interested in talking about. Anyone who is listening, please leave in the comments what your favorite cards are and what it means, what kind of play styles you like to use with them. But also, next time, tell us what you'd like to hear us talk about next.
Probably not going to be just Magic talking about here, especially if we go with that title I thought of Players of Games.
Right.
I actually have a little hint and a pitch to Will here.
Oh,
that
boy.
Maybe next time we talk about Smash Brothers.
Ooh.
I know you've played it, and it wasn't that long ago I finally turned it back on again and just 100%ed World of Light.
Nice.
So I feel like we could have some interesting chats about that.
And we'll most likely have some other people in when we do it.
Hopefully. See what kind of guests we can find.
Right. Anyway, thank you for joining me, Chris, or thanks for helping me do this, and thank you all for listening in and joining us, and we will see you next time.
Farewell.